Good morning. Good morning. How are you? Great. It's great. Yeah, great. You are the second butt to be in this seat. So I told first hour, you're the first butts to be in these seats. I can't say that to you, although a few were empty. So maybe you're the first butt in this seat. But I hope you enjoy. I know. I wanted to say some of you, you're disappointed, you're frustrated, you're angry. You're not saying it, but there's no coffee holder on it, and you're mad. And it's directed. I feel it's directed here. I just want you to know they will have coffee holders. They left them off the truck, and so we're going to be installing them. They go on the back of the chairs. They flip up and down, and so we're going to have a coffee cup installation party soon. So, everybody relax, all right? Just relax, calm down. It's going to be fine, all right? Hey, I want to give you a warning. Today's topic, this whole series, is adult content only. So if you have kids in the room, we want maybe this is a warning. All right, this would be a good time for you. Thank you for that, Sean. You can take them to the kids building and discover how great our kids ministry is. Unless you want me to have that talk with them before you have that talk with them. So it's up to you, but that's where we're going today. So I'm going to give you about a minute to get them out of here if you'd like to, okay? Jake Viramontes was our host this morning, and this was Jake this past week on the Kelly Clarkson Show. Check this out. How cool is that? Jake makes documentaries for nonprofits, and he does it for free so those nonprofits can around the world. He was at trash dumps in India last year telling the story of people who live around the trash dumps so they could build them houses for 27 families. It's such a cool thing. So Kelly Clarkson had him on. He was there. I put that up there because Jake would never put that up there. He left, in fact, because he was so embarrassed that I was going to do that. So I did it last hour, and it was fun. But Jake, way to go doing that. It's awesome. Hey, we're starting a new series, and it's a great time for you if you're here, if you're just checking us out for the first time, if you're new, or even if you're just getting back to church, or, you don't miss the first part of a series, because this is kind of how we set it up. We kind of get going, and we get the thing launched. We do series because it's easier to remember. We do topical things. Like most of us, as we grew up in church, if you grew up in church, you go to class or something, have you ever been to a conference where they just bombard you with like 3 days of content? You leave, you're like, that was so good. I remember nothing from that at all. And so our hope is to give you one thing this week, and one thing next week, and one thing the week after, and one thing after that, so we actually retain some of what we're talking about. So you can take one thing at a time. We do it in chunks. So I'm glad you're here to talk about this series. It's complicated. We're glad that you're here. I teach from the Bible. I use the Bible. If you're new, we do use the Bible around here. This is the verses I'm going to be using this morning. Genesis 1, Ephesians, Philippians, Proverbs, and 2 in 1 Corinthians. So you can take a screenshot of that, or if you watch it back, you can find us on YouTube. You should follow us on YouTube. We make announcements there. Or you can find it on our website, newventures.org. You can take a screenshot. This is where we're going. If you want to go back and read these later and recap, refresh. I know that's what you do. You leave here and you just marinate on what I said. You just spend lots of time thinking about it and mulling it over all week long. So just act like you do, okay? And so we're starting this series called It's Complicated. Now, let's dive in. I've given you enough time to get your kids out of here. Do you know what the very first commandment in God's Word is? The very first commandment in the Bible is to have sex. It's the first commandment. Some of you are like, I have always loved the Bible. I just really connect with the Bible. I've been thinking about getting a Bible. I just really felt like there's some good stuff in it, right? So the first commandment is to go have sex. That's the first commandment in the Bible. It was God's idea to go and do this. Now the Bible is like R-rated, guys. I mean, it is like, if you read this thing, it is like wildly sexual and like it is messed up kind of stuff. And then there's like murder, and there's like war, and there's like backstabbing. Some people are like, you need to have a biblical marriage. I'm like, I don't think you want a biblical marriage. If you read about some of these marriages, these things are awful. The stuff that went on in the Bible, it's really wild. You should read your Bible. I think one of the best versions, most Hollywood versions of the Bible are like soups, cheesy, like just not worth watching. But The Chosen is, I think, a really well done show if you've been watching it. And the executive producer, Daryl Eves, a few claps for The Chosen, all right? So maybe the rest of you get motivated and watch it. But Daryl Eves, the executive producer, one of the creators of The Chosen, will be right here on this stage February 26th to speak with our students and families. He has a heart for the next generation. He has done a documentary about 9 next-gen people who came and watched The Chosen, binge-watched it, and the reactions before and after, and the things. So he really wants to help people and cities and communities figure out, what are we doing to help our next generation discover the God who loves them. And so growing up in a YouTube generation, he's going to be here. It's going to be an awesome night. Make sure you're here. We'll have Little Caesars pizza. So if that's not a draw, I don't know what is that night. Or some kind of pizza. I don't know what we're doing, but there'll be food here, okay? The first commandment in the Bible is in Genesis chapter 1, verse 28. First thing God says, God blessed them, and he said to them, be fruitful and increase in number. And then he said, don't touch that fruit over there. He said, touch each other. That's what you should do. You go touch her, touch him. That's how this whole thing works, right? I mean, their whole job, it was not complicated. Their whole job was tend to the garden, do it, and raise the babies. That was it. That was the whole plan, right? And they messed that up. How do you mess that up? They went and eat the fruit, and so like we all would have done probably. And so we end up with relationships today because of all the brokenness that came into the world. Relationships are no longer as easy as be fruitful and multiply. They're a lot more complicated. Would you agree love is difficult? Now, some of you who are new to love, you're like, what are you talking about, bro? It's amazing, You haven't done it long enough, all right? Love is difficult. I mean, you say stuff like cuddle too much. You screw it all up, You're trying, but then you just screw it up. Try to help you out, Kev. We've all been there, We say it's difficult, right? Love, it's so true. Love is more than a feeling, right? We think it's a feeling, but the ooey gooey part of love, they say it fades away for almost everybody after 2 years. And in fact, love is really what happens after the feelings are gone. Love's a choice. It's a decision to love somebody even in their failure, even in their brokenness, even with all their yuck parts. Love is a choice, it's a decision, it's much more than just a feeling. And it's difficult. And listen, if your person you're trying to love does not meet all your conditions, that's actually good news. Because if you are a follower of Jesus, you're trying to love like Jesus, and Jesus loved unconditionally, right? Well, how in the world are you going to love someone unconditionally if they meet all your conditions? So look at your person and say, you're welcome for helping you love me unconditionally by not meeting all of your conditions, right? I'm really helping you. But the model in the Christian faith is that Jesus climbs up on a cross and he dies for us. He lays down his life to love us unconditionally. And he's the model, which is why it's so difficult to love, because there's all this baggage we bring into it. Baggage from our past, baggage from our childhood, baggage from previous relationships, hurts, wounds, struggles, failures, unexpected. We've got expectations that aren't met. I mean, it's really difficult to love somebody. It's really difficult to be in love. And we're calling this series, It's Complicated, because loving someone is complicated. And trying to teach about relationships in 2023 in a church is going to be a little complicated, right? There are going to be some landmines. In fact, some of you are thinking, even right now as we start doing this, you're thinking, what's he going to say about divorce? Is there going to be something about divorce in this? What's he going to say about LGBTQ? Like, what about trans? What about non-binary? Does he know that gender and sexuality are two different things? Or is he just some buffoon up there saying stuff? Like, and some of you, if you're single, you're like, is there going to be a speed dating moment at any time where we get to sort of meet people? And I'm like, yeah, in just a moment, I'll call all the single people up here, just look at each other and see what you think. And I'm just going to do that. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not doing that, okay? It's fucking weird, right? If you're married, you're thinking, if your marriages have some cracks in it, you're like, will this series, will these weeks together, will this help fill in some of the gaps and fill in some of the cracks and help us have a fresh start to what you're doing? If you're older and married, you've been married for like 45 years or something like that, it's a long time, and you're thinking, this guy has nothing that he could say to me that we haven't already been through. He's a fool for even trying. I just want to agree with you. That's probably true, and I apologize because I've been married for 45 years. You guys know more than us. But you have a hard time getting on stage, so we couldn't have you up here doing this. So I'm just kidding, guys. These are jokes. These are jokes, all right? Stupid, all right. Win your audience over, Darren. Great job, great job. My point is this. When it comes to relationships, there are lots of questions. There are lots of perspectives. There are lots of backgrounds. We all have a different way of approaching it. We have different thoughts on how they should be done and what should be said and the way it should work and who gets to be here, there, and whatever, right? We all have different opinions, and yet we all want the exact same thing. All of us want the same thing. And what is it that we want? What is that same thing? What's it wired into us to want when it comes to relationships? Well, I think we want this. I think everybody wants this. We all desire to be loved, known, and important. We all want to be loved. Love me right where I am, no matter what I do, just love me. We all want to be known. Like, I don't want to have to hide all the time and pretend that I'm somebody else. I want to be real with somebody and let them love me right where I am. And we want to be important to somebody. I want someone to, when they think of me, be like, that's my guy. That's my girl. Like this, growing up, don't you just always want somebody to be like, you are so fine, girl. You are so fine, guy. Like, you just want to be important to them. Most of us, there may be some of you out there like, nah, I'm just not interested in having anyone care about me. But most of us deeply want someone to care for us, to be known, loved, and important. And so the point of this series is going to be to help us do relationships better. That's my hope. The whole point of this series is that we could do the thing that matters most better, that we would be even better at relationships than we are right now. Relationships done well are so life-giving. Relationships done poorly, though, can be so devastating. When mom leaves, when dad leaves, when husband leaves, when wife leaves, when abuse happens, when neglect happens, all of these things cause so much disturbance in our soul and our spirit. So we got to do relationships better. How can we do them better? So we're going to talk about that. A couple things, just a disclaimer as we get going, what this is not. This is not a guilt and shame series. I'm not going to use guilt and shame to say, look at, you got to change this or change that. I can't believe this, or look where your story is, or whatever. Like, if you feel conviction at the end of this, that could be the Holy Spirit saying, hey, you got some explaining to do. You got some changes to make, But it's not going to be guilt and shame. We're not doing that. That's not a way. It's not a good way to motivate or to help people. So we're not going to be doing that. Second thing is, it's not an agenda for like some problem the church has with relationships today. I know some people are thinking, well, is he going to talk about homosexuality and the biblical view of homosexuality? No, we're not going to do that. And the reason we're not going to do that, this is my personal opinion. Okay, this is just something I believe. If you are gay and you're still coming to church as an adult, you probably have more faith than I do. And here's why. Here's what I mean by that. You are coming to church through opposition. You know that people are going to look at you sideways. They're going to question you. You're going to bump up against some people who don't want you there, who disagree with you being there. And yet you came anyway through opposition. That's some strong faith. That's some like chutzpah. That's like some, I'm going to do this anyway because I want to be where God is being taught. And I'm impressed by that kind of faith. And so it's enough for me to let God and the gay person in a church sort of like work through the theology of all that. And it's enough for me as a pastor to just help with the relationship side of it. Like, what do you do in relationships? So this is not some agenda where we're going to like use this platform to stir the pot on that. I'm not going to do that. There's no gotcha messages from this stage. What I really hope for this relationship series is that we can use it to help all relationships thrive, wherever you find yourself, whatever your story, that we'd be able to make them better. That's my hope. I'll have a section at the end of every message called Try This and Tell Me What Happened. Don't tell me everything that happens, but just some things that were good that came out of what happened. Some of it, keep it to yourself, know the boundaries. We're going to do this at the end every week. We're going to talk about, this week we're going to talk about you, and then we're going to talk next week about one thing you can do that if you do this, it'll change everything for you. And then weeks 3 and 4, we're going to talk about sex. And the reason we're going to talk about sex is that if we don't talk about sex, then the world will talk about sex, and the world gets the microphone for sex. And the world's way of handling sex is so jacked up. I mean, it is stupid. And here's how I know. I have to take a mandated reporter class from Montgomery High School because I coach track. And did you know, I was going through it yesterday, did you know over 9 million cases of sexual abuse are reported every year in America? 9 million times sex is being, that's just the reported ones. That's just reported. The world has jacked up sexuality. They have ruined it in so many ways. The way we teach it, the way we splatter it everywhere, the way we just talk about it in ways that are just so just wildly outside the bounds of what God intended. And so we have to talk about it. If the church doesn't talk about it, who will? Now listen, I know the church has stunk at it before, okay? This is all the church has been able to come up for years. It's been, okay guys, don't do it before you get married. Just don't do it, okay? All right, are we clear? Are we clear? Okay, break. All right, let's go move something else. Like, this is the best we can do, which is foolish. It's so dumb because you get 17, 18, you're in church, you love God, God's cool, and then you realize, I think I kind of want to have sex. And then you have sex, and you think, well, I did what the church told me not to, so I'm not allowed to be in church anymore. And you feel like you got kicked out of church. I think if you have sex and you've been going to church, you should be kicked back into church. That's what should happen. You should get kicked back in. Like, don't run away now, you know? I mean, because you're normal, you should leave. Because you realize that you're interested in sex like every human, right? So we've done a bad job. So I want to do a good job talking about, like, why did God design it the way he designed it? Why did he give us any boundaries? What are the boundaries for? What's the point of it? Like, how do you get the most out of a sex life? How do you, like, prepare for it? How do you prepare for not having a jacked up sex perspective in the world? So we're going to talk about that for week 3 and 4 and maybe 5, 6, 7, and 8. We'll just... very interested in that topic, people are, so just keep going and keep going. We're not really going to do that. I love, Ruth Graham was the wife of Billy Graham, and I love what she said about divorce. Divorce is crazy, the statistics. And somebody came to her and said, hey, Ruth, have you ever thought about divorcing Billy Graham? And she said, oh, no. Murder many times. But divorce, no, I would never. And why is that so funny? Some of you. I just say that as an option for some of you. No, that's our story. Molly and I, like it's off the table. We don't talk about divorce. It's not going to happen. But murder, for sure, has been something that she has thought about. I'm like, I didn't think you liked guns. What is that, you know? And anyway... I was reading some divorce stats the other day, getting ready for this, and it's astounding. Every 42 seconds, someone gets divorced. Every hour, 86 couples get a divorce. In a given work day, an 8-hour work day, that means 656 couples, while you go to work for one day, get divorced every day. In a given year, 746,000 couples get a divorce. Isn't that crazy? That's insane, right? And it seems like we have a divorce problem. By the way, if you've been through a divorce, if you are divorced, you don't have to squirm in your seat and feel bad about it. It happens. I mean, literally 60% of marriages before 40 years come to an end through a divorce. I mean, it's pretty common, right? I do a lot of weddings, right? And people, not once has anyone said in their vows, until divorce do us part. They don't say that. They say, till death do us part, but they don't mean that because it's an option for a lot of people. It's on the table, and so it happens, right? You don't have to feel bad about it. It happens. It's a regular part of life, and many of you have gone through it. In fact, if I just made you raise your hands and I said the question, I'm not going to make you raise your hand. I said, how many of your lives have been impacted in any way by divorce in some way? Almost everyone in the room would raise their hand. In some form or fashion, divorce has come to your doorstep somehow, some way, whether it was a friend, a family member, whatever the case. We've all been around it and experienced it. And so what's going on? Like, why is this happening so frequently? Because then marriage gets a bad rap. And people of this generation go, I'm not getting married because marriage is just end in divorce. So I'm not even going to go through that. I'm going to do it differently. I'm not going to go God's route with marriage because that doesn't work. Well, the reality is that marriage is still a good thing. It's God's representation of his love for us. He said, I'm never going to leave you. I'm never going to forsake you. I'm in it for the long haul forever, and God never leaves us. And he says, this is a model of what that should look like. And then we are unable to be like God because love is difficult. Marriage isn't the problem, and divorce isn't the problem. You know what the problem is? People are the problem. That's the problem. People aren't ready. People aren't prepared. People are the problem, which means you are the problem. You're the problem. I'm the problem.
It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me.
That's right. It's me. Once again, T Swift gets it right again, right? It's me. It's me. I'm the problem. It's me. And the first place to start in this relationship series, if we want better relationships, isn't with the other person. Oh, I know it's easy to find problems with them, right? I know the other person is an idiot. I get it. The other person, if they didn't do this, I wouldn't act like that. It's so easy to shift the blame to the other person because remember, you're amazing. In your mind, in my mind, I am amazing. It's true. I think I'm right a lot. What kind of a narcissistic fool signs up to be the pastor who stands on a stage and tells everybody else how to live their lives? I'm not going to be pretty full of myself just to say yes to a job like this. I think I'm amazing, and Molly, what are you doing? If I'm not careful, I turn my life into the kingdom of Darren. And I want to just, have you be my subservient world around me, making everything good and golden for me so that I can have the life that I desire in my heart. You got a kingdom of you out there that you're working on? You got a kingdom of my way, and this is how I want to do it? Our counselor says there's 3 kinds of crap in a marriage. First one's chicken crap, all right? Chicken crap dries up, blows away. It's like, how come you didn't put the tube on the thing on the toothpaste? How come your socks are on the floor? Will you please pick those up? Why'd you load the dishwasher like that? It's not how you load the dishwasher. It's like, okay, all right, I'll fix it, all right? It's just little stuff, right? Some of you have that argument. And so, let's not get into fights out here, okay? Some of you are stupid idiots, all right? Let's just calm down, everybody. And so, that's the chicken crap, right? Second crap is bull crap. Now, the bull crap that's what you guys tend to keep getting in fights about. You keep butting heads about the big ideas, the big things that like the money issue, or something like that. You've got something big. You just keep butting heads about that. And it's messy. You step in the bull crap and it stinks. It's no good. You got to figure out how to clean that up and get past that. But the real problem is the elephant crap. That's the real problem. And the elephant crap, that's what y'all brought into the marriage. That's what you brought into the house. That's what you brought into the relationship. All the baggage from your past, all the ways you think life should work, all the hurts and the wounds and struggles. And every time she says, I don't think that tie looks good on you, you go, you hate me. It's like, no, I didn't say I hate you. I just said I don't like that tie. Okay, well, I know what you mean by that. No, I don't mean that. Why are you so sensitive about this, right? You got all this elephant crap in your life, and you step in that stuff, and it's stinky and nasty and gross, and you got to figure out how to get the elephant. And that means you got to work on you, because you're the one that brings it in, and I'm the one who brings it in. And the place to start to fix a relationship is not always the other person. The place to start to work on relationships that are really good, I know you want to be loved and known, but you got to work on you first so you can be in a healthy relationship. Les and Leslie Parrott are these counselors who wrote this book called Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts. And inside of it, they say that people bring unspoken rules into their marriage. They bring unspoken rules, things that they want, things that they would like to have happen in their life. All right. And listen, if you're single in the room, if you've been through a divorce recently, you're walking through a hard time, listen, I don't want you to be discouraged by this. Some of these things that we're talking about, that we're learning, that we're going to go through, these are the very things that will help you in the next relationship that God brings your way. These are things that you actually get to get right now. That if you learn these things before you get to that place, it's going to be so much easier for you when you get to that place in your journey. You're just on a journey. But one of the things you bring into relationships is this idea of unspoken rules and ways that life should go. Holidays, for example, right? Some of you grew up, this is the way our family does it, this is the way her family does it, his family does it. Molly and I had that, our first visit to the Youngstrom family, I was confident would be life-changingly amazing for her. I just knew, we do the Youngstrom Family Olympics, babe. This is going to be killer. And I was like, I already bought the tickets. She's like, how long are we going to be there? I was like, 2 or 3 months. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be so awesome. She was like, wait, we're staying how long? I was like, I'm always the first one in and the last one out. That's how I do it. And she was like, I don't think I like that. I don't even know your family that well, like I don't want to, and I was like, yeah, but we play games for like 6 days straight. It's so fun. And she's like, that sounds awful. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, I thought this was going to be the greatest time ever. And then we went to her family gathering the next holiday, and we had dinner together. We had a nice time. We talked, we chatted, and everyone left. And I was like, oh, you do it differently than we do it. because you all live close to each other. We're far away, and so we get together. Like this is, but I had this rule in my heart that when we go to family gatherings, we bring the fun, baby. Like that's what we do. And she was like, no, we don't. You know, like, that's what you do, all right? Weirdo, right? And we all have these things that we have rules of how to live life that we've brought to the relationship that we never talked about. Here's a list that they gave. Don't interrupt another person's work. Always buy organic fruits and vegetables. Some of you. Don't ask for help unless you're desperate. Downplay your successes. Don't talk about your success. Always leave the butter on the countertop. Don't put it in the fridge. Okay? My mom. Somebody said yes in the front row. Like, my people. Always close the bathroom door. Don't work too long or too hard. Always celebrate birthdays in a big way. Birthdays are not that big a deal. Never raise your voice. It's okay to yell sometimes. Don't talk about your body. Always be on time. Clean the kitchen before you go to bed. Don't talk about your feelings. Always pay bills the day they arrive. Don't drive too fast. Drive faster. Never buy dessert at the restaurant. Only use a credit card in an emergency. Don't buy expensive gifts. And on and on and on it goes. And you and I, we have our rules for how life works when we do it our way. And you brought yours in, the other person brought theirs in, and the two of you collide. And if you're not careful, you live your life in your relationship trying to get it to go your way. The way you want it, the way you like it, the way it should go, the way you would want it to go. And then what happens is I bring mine and she brings hers, you bring yours, and the two of you come together in this, I want it this way, and you collide into this explosion of a fight that I want my way. And it doesn't work very well. And if you live that way, you're really living the way that the world tells you to live. You're going against the very thing that God teaches us about relationships. You know what the world says about relationships? In relationships, here's their advice. You do you, boo. That's the relationship advice. You do you, boo. You get what you want. You get out of it what you want. Make sure you get yours. Make sure you get what you want. Make sure you have what you want for yourself. You protect you. Look out for number one in a relationship. That's what we're told. Make sure you take care of you, which God says is foolish. In fact, he says people like that. Solomon writes it in Proverbs. He says, listen, fools find no pleasure in understanding. Like fools don't even try to understand the other person. They don't even ask them what they would like. They don't even ask them what their unwritten rules are. They don't even care because they delight in airing their own opinions. They're always talking about the way they want things to go, the way they think things should go. This is foolish behavior. And if you're walking in a marriage that's colliding like this constantly, like sometimes I am, it's because I'm acting like a fool. Because I'm not even trying to understand what she would want. Sometimes she's not even trying to understand what I would want. Do this for me. If you're sitting with your person here today, look at each other and just say, I would love it if you tried to put me first every time. Just say that to each other. Just say, it would feel so good for you to put me first. Just say that right now. Look at your person. Say, it would feel so good for you to put me first. Okay, all right, listen, all right. That's enough. I am curious who said it first. I'm curious about that. If there was a conflict there or what. But doesn't that feel good? Wouldn't it be nice? And isn't it interesting? You both want that. Both people in a relationship desire to be put first. You know this is the right way to do relationship because it's what you want. You want the other person to look at you and understand you and figure out how to serve you. And guess what? If you want it, guess what the other person wants too? They also want you. Right? That's where this next verse comes in. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 20. It gets butchered a lot in relationship talks from pastors because pastors are oftentimes men talking about this verse. Because there is a place in the Bible that says, women submit to your husbands. But the verse before that says this. It says, and further, submit to, what does it say? One another. Oh, sorry, husbands, you know. It's not just wives submit to your husbands. It's you guys together submit to each other out of reverence for Christ because Christ died for you. He laid down his life for you. So we lay down our lives for each other, right? It's a submission competition. That's what Andy Stanley coined it. It's a submission competition to see who can serve the other one best. And this is how relationships thrive, that we put the other person before ourselves. It goes, Philippians says it like this, do not be selfish, don't be selfish, don't try to impress others, but be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but also to the interests of others. This is basic relationship advice. If you want to have good relationships, you make the other people important. Real quick verse, it says this in 1 Corinthians, no one should seek their own good, but the good of others. How simple is that? That's not that complicated, but why is it so complicated? Because I want what I want. I got my rules for life. I got my way of doing it. I got my elephant crap that I want it this way. It's not that complicated, but it's so complicated. This is easy, right? You understand this. No one should seek their own good, but the good of others. Put other people first. Submit to each other out of reverence for Christ. And then the most famous, wedding verse of all, love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it's not proud. It does not dishonor others, it's not self-seeking. It's not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love is not self-seeking. It's others-seeking. That's what love is. It's difficult to do, though. And all this wisdom comes from our Heavenly Father. Right? God is teaching us. He's showing us, hey, if you really want to be good at relationships, it's not you do you, boo. It's take care of the other person, boo. It's help the other person. It's put the other person before yourself. And the real order of how this should go in our lives is this. We listen to God first, right? God, whatever you say, I'll put you first. God first. Others go second. And then me, I go last. The problem we have, the reason we have such a high divorce rate, I think, one of the main reasons we have such a high divorce rate, you could divorce-proof your marriage if you flip this, but one of the reasons that we have such a high divorce rate is because we put ourselves where God belongs. And it goes like this, me first, and then we put ourselves where they belong. Me second, and then we put ourselves third. Me third. And then others, and maybe some God down there. But it's also focused on what I want. This is what I want out of marriage. This is when I want sex. This is how much sex I want and when I want it. This is what I want with money. This is what I want to do with our money. This is my vision for our lives. Now, are you still with me? Jump on board with my vision for our lives. No, you don't like it? And forget you. Right? Because we don't even try to understand. We don't love the other person. We love our person. And we put ourselves in the place of God. We've got to flip that around. Here's an easy way to say it. This is what I think God is teaching us. Relationships work best when you put yourself last. Relationships will work best when you put yourself last. This doesn't mean that you just get run over. This doesn't mean if you're in an abusive relationship, you don't get out of it. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that our own selfishness is often what gets in the way of us having great relationships. So relationships in general work best when you put yourself last and the other person ahead of you. If you want to say it in a more fun, maybe memorable way, you could say it like this: put the other person thirsty and you won't be so thirsty. That will be another way to say this. So stupid. But maybe you'll remember that. If you put them thirsty, you won't end up thirsty, homie. My guy. All right. So try this and tell me what happens. Let me know how it goes. Here's what I want you to try. If you're married, I got some stuff for married people. I got some stuff for single people, both in the room. All right. If you're married, you can do this. Awesome Marriage is a website, and they have this 14-day scripture plan. On your way out the door, we have a card that you'll get. It's got a QR code on it. You just scan that QR code. You get a 14-day little Bible study to do with your person. And you can just do that for the next 2 weeks and see what happens. And it's really easy. You actually go online. You have to pay $10. It's a pyramid scheme. I get 3, and no, I'm kidding. It's not. I paid $10, okay? It's just a resource I found. I like it. I use it. And they have a lot of good tips about marriage that will come to your inbox. I actually read a lot of them, and they're very helpful. So Awesome Marriage is what it's called, and it'd be a cool thing for you to do. You get a card on the way out. Second thing you can do is that you can do appreciations. Okay, this is something to put the other person ahead of you. So our marriage counselor taught us this, that one of the things that happens is people serve in your house. Somebody's serving around you all the time, and that it never gets noticed. It just goes on and on. Nobody ever says anything. And so you never feel appreciated. You feel like unappreciated. And so one of the ways to fix that is at the end of the day or sometime during the day, you stop and you go, I want to tell you what I appreciate about you. and you verbalize your appreciation. I love doing this in small groups with husbands and wives there, because the husbands, it gets to their turn and they're like, I don't know what to say, and freaks them out. But you have to practice looking for things that the other person's doing that you really appreciate. This will help you in so many ways. You can read this book, The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. There's a guy named John Gottman who did research. It's the only data research done on how to save your marriage from divorce. And it's research-based. He watched hundreds and hundreds of couples, studied them over time, and he can tell you with a 91% predictability of who's going to stay together, who's going to get divorced. These are the 7 principles he came up with after studying all these marriages for all this time. It's a really great book and a great read for you if you want to read it together. Some of you may not like to read, so maybe you could watch something together. You could go to Right Now Media, and you could watch The Crazy Cycle. It's a series on there on Right Now Media. About how you get in these arguments, you get stuck. Okay, and then lastly, you can ask this question each morning for the next week or so. What's one way I can put the other person first today? What's just one way I can put the other person first today? Just get in the practice of doing that. I'm telling you, it'll change. It'll change you. It'll change the way you think. It'll change your relationship. And you think, well, if I'm always doing for them, who's going to do for me? Well, hopefully them. Once you start doing, but somebody's got to start, y'all. Somebody's got to die to themselves first. So who's going to be in your relationship? And if you're really twisted, then you die first so you can be the better person, okay? You just sicko you in your mind. You're like you're still winning somehow. Anyway. And single people, here's what you can do. If you're single, and let me tell you, I was single for a long time. There's nothing wrong with being single. In fact, I would tell you this. If you're single, I just want you to hear this. Marriage is not the solution. You think you're miserable now. My mom told me this when I was like 34, single. I called her up. I was like, Mom, I'm single, and all my friends are getting married. And she goes, well, I'll tell you this, being married to the wrong person is worse than being single. And I was like, Dad? Is it Dad? She was like, I got to go. I'm just telling you, if you're single and you're like, I just need another person, that's not the answer. The answer is for you to become the person that God made you to be in a relationship with Him so that you're prepared for relationships someday. And if you need somebody, I always say, if you really need somebody, you ain't ready. I always say, don't ever go to the grocery store and shop when you're hungry, and don't ever date when you're thirsty. Because you will date anything. If I go hungry, I'm like having Klondike bars for dinner. I'm going to have also 2 turkeys, and that's what I'm going to eat, and 3 bags of chips and 2 bottles of soda. That's because I'm so hungry. I'll eat anything. And when you're so thirsty, you just need somebody, you'll date any old thing, and you don't need to be dating any old thing. You need to be getting you right so that you become the person that's ready for somebody. Another person is not the answer. Don't be discouraged in your singleness. I know it's hard and lonely. I've been there before. Single people, you could journal. When I am with somebody, how do I put them first? And just ask God, what ways do I need to die? What selfish ways need to die inside of me so that I can be ready for somebody someday? Like, how do I fix this selfish thing in me? There's also a great book you can read by Ben Stewart called Single, Dating, Engaged, Married. Super great book. Pick that thing up and take a look at it. And then lastly, you can go to Right Now Media and watch Andy Stanley's series, Love, Sex, and Dating. Really good series for you to check out. And it's video. You can just watch it. It's free. You have an account through New Vintage. If you don't know how to get it, you can email us and we'll tell you how to do that. I want you to have great relationships. Relationships are hard. They're painful. They're difficult. I want them to be so great for you. If you're young in the room and you're just getting started, you get a chance to get this right. And the best way to begin fixing anything that might have some cracks in it is not to point a finger at somebody else, right? It's to look at me. What do I need to do so that I can help this get better? Let's start there this week. Start looking at you. Let's pray. God, thanks for today. Thanks for your word that teaches us that the best way to have good relationships is to put you first, other people second, and to go last. God, you're very clear about that. It's not really complicated, but it's so hard because we really want to get our agenda and our thoughts and our ideas, so we want to be first and right all the time. Would you help us to die to ourselves like you did so that we can have great relationships? Help all of us, God. Help us all to model it. And God, I pray you would rescue broken relationships, relationships that are going sideways right now, people who are hurting, people who are struggling, people who are feeling lonely or lost or discouraged. Father, would you just pour out your love, your mercy, and your grace? Would you draw people close to you so they can feel and sense the closeness of God in this time of their life? And would you help us, God, to look at ourselves, and would you help us to be willing to ask the hard questions about what can change in me so we can be better together? In Christ's name we pray, amen. Hey, I'll see you back here next week. If it's your first time, I got a gift for you. Y'all have a great Sunday. Adios. And if you're a leader, we got a meeting, we got a lunch at 12:15 in the warehouse.